Well, maybe the issue is NoFault Divorce then,
yes.
right? Like,
yes.
so I can understand kind of like what you both are saying, like, and I as well, like, I don't have a prenup. I wouldn't want to be, enter into marriage that way. But I can also understand where, for a man or a woman that had built up a lot of wealth and we're now getting into this, legal contract that's, supposed to represent a spiritual commitment, but then we're making it a legal contract. And part of that legal contract isn't structured around a lifelong agreement like it used to be because we got rid of because now we have NoFault Divorce. So I could understand getting rid of NoFault Divorce.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, and I think also,
the courts are heavily biased in favor of women.
Yeah.
To an insane degree, especially with children and men.
Well,
Yes.
it's funny because we live in this culture where no-fault divorce is the law of the land, and people will say things like, well, look how often marriage ends in divorce. How could you ever be in favor of social structures which disincentivize that or would, dissuade people from getting divorced? But I think what people often miss is if young folks know they're in an environment where divorce is not an option, I firmly believe they're going to be more careful about who they choose to marry. And I think also people are going to be more careful about their decision making in general when it comes to sexuality. A lot of people will start sleeping with someone, and as you've mentioned, that releases oxytocin and other hormones that bond you. And there are a lot of couples that end up together because they're sexually engaging with one another and they're bonding, but they're not actually really good for each other. And then at some point in the marriage, when the novelty of that person wears off, they get divorced. So I think it's not just that we have no-fault divorce in people who would otherwise be staying married or getting divorced. I think they're actually making poor choices about who they end up marrying because of the current status quo.
A starter marriage. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a phrase.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
What's that, like training wheels?
I don't know. It's something I've heard young women talk about is like a starter marriage, or it's even worse. But I've heard young women say like, first marriage is for money, second marriage is for love.
Wow.
Yeah. I know it's
And
ugly.
this is ruining relationships. It's we were talking about this the other day that we're citing Jordan Peterson so often in this, but he was saying something that after 35 you better have a family because that's when things start to break down. That's what the were you were here for that, right? Or no?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
When what things start to break down?
When you're going to be lonely, you're going to have no friends. Like if you don't start a family around 35, you're going to be
left
this
out.
is
Is colloquially called the wall. And I'm sure you've heard of it if you've been a denizen of the internet for any length of time. All women supposedly hit a wall when they're about 35. And if you don't have a family, you are going to be lonely. And you're going to have a problem. You're not going to be able to find a good date. It doesn't matter how much money you make because that's not what men look for in a spouse.
I do think that there are exceptions to that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you for the most part. And, for me as a psychologist, again, I've sat with women, going through some really rough times, in those situations. But there are also women that they never want to get married. They never want to have kids. They have almost like, and I mean this in a loving, fond way, they have a Peter Pan type of existence.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to have their dog. They want to go to brunch. They make a lot of money and they're quite happy. They don't want to give of themselves in the way that it takes to be a wife, to be a mom. So I don't want to, deny that there are women for whom that actually works out.
Do you think that's a chemical imbalance, or is that just natural?
I don't think it's a chemical imbalance. I don't know what it is, but I just wanted to just make room for the fact that while I do think it's true what Tim said for the most part, and that's definitely the majority of what I see as a psychologist, but there are women that just do their own thing.
Maybe we would just be better off if, I don't know, women had to wear red dresses and bonnets.
Yeah.
Stop it. Well, it's funny because so you've sort of mentioned that being the exception to the rule, and Lydia brought up this idea of the wall. Part of what's so unfortunate and really stultifying to the discourse on basically everything is that people confuse making like a prescriptive claim and a descriptive claim. So by Lydia mentioning that there does seem to be this point at which it's going to be significantly more difficult for a woman to find a partner, that she's saying that that's good. And so because of that, people are just reluctant to say that to young women. They're reluctant to share the truth with them about what could possibly await them if they don't get married before a certain point of time. And I think that's really horrendous. I think that's a really horrible thing to do to young women. You should tell them the realistic possibilities for their life instead of trying to claim everyone can do everything and then having them end up miserable because they had completely unrealistic expectations because of you.
My prediction is millennial women will not admit it. This single millennial women, they're chasing their careers. Many of them are probably doing it due to social pressures. Many of them are doing it because they really want to do it. And for that, nothing but respect. of the women who are not being honest with themselves and are more concerned about social pressures than what they truly would want, maybe a family, I don't think they'll admit it. They'll be 40 and they'll say, nope, life's great. I've never been happier. Young women will see it. They'll be 45. I love my life. I'm single and I'm living it up in the big city. They're going to be 55. And they're going to say, well, it has its charm. They're going to be 60 and they're going to go to the young people and say, I've made a terrible mistake. Don't make the same mistake I did.
Yep.
But by that point, there's going to be a generation or two that believed the lies.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that there's such thing as a soulmate?
No.
I've wondered this
You guys-
because I think that being in the wrong relationship is worse than being single, personally, from my
yes.
personal experience.
Agreed.
Yes.
And so I
Yeah.
was looking for the soulmate. I spent decades alone, lonely, and I don't know. I don't think, personally, I just can't. I think a lot of people might be waiting for the one, and that's maybe a mistake.
I want to give the gist of that famous joke that I've told before. It's you know the joke about the guy in the flood and he prays to the Lord for
Yes.
for savior.
Yeah.
So I love this one so much. It's good. There's a flood. The guy's in his house, and the news comes on and says evacuate now. And so he prays, dear Lord, I've been a faithful servant. Please save me from this flood. All of a sudden, a car pulls up, and they jump out, and they say, quick, get in. We're getting out of here, but the flood gets too bad. And he goes, no, I'm not going. The Lord will save me. And they're like, you have to come with us. And he refuses. After a few hours, the waters have risen so high, he's reached the second floor of his house. And then once again, he prays, oh, Lord, save me. I've been a faithful servant. And a boat pulls up to the window, and they're like, quick, get in. We're getting out of here. And the guy says, no, the Lord will save me. The waters keep rising, so he climbs out the window, goes on the roof. And then he says, please, Lord, don't let me die. Then a helicopter comes and they're like, they throw a rope ladder down, quick, climb the rope ladder. And he goes, no, the Lord will save me. And then they're like, you have to. And the helicopter leaves because he won't do it. And the floodwaters rise up and he dies. When he makes his way up to heaven, he's, before God. And he says, I don't understand. I was a faithful servant that did everything. And you let me die. And he goes, I sent you a car, a boat, and a helicopter. But the reason I tell that joke now is I think for you, Ian, you're saying you were single for so long because you're trying to find the soulmate. Perhaps you've already met them and you just thought it was going to be something more than it really was. You assumed the soulmate would come down with wings floating down before you when it was just some, regular looking person who was like, what up?
I thought that the soulmate was going to make me better, but what I realized was I make myself better, and so she comes. She arrives, however you
The
want.
field of dreams approach. If you build it, they will come.
That's right.
Ah,
It's a
you
good
build yourself
approach,
up.
yeah.
I'm curious what you think of the idea of soulmates as a psychologist.
Yeah, I don't really believe in that
Nice.
so much, but Ian, I do think that there's something to be said, for, as you said, just focusing on yourself and trying to attract the right person. I think that our instant gratification society, whether it be, always the opportunity to, swipe right and, see more and constantly compare, it actually makes it harder to really fix on somebody and, settle down on somebody. Like there have even been studies that have shown when it comes to like buying peanut butter, for example, if you put a customer in an aisle with 40 different jars of peanut butter, they just won't buy one. Like they're just like, geez, do I want the crunchy or do I want the organic or do I want the, they go on and on. And I think the same thing can happen like with dating, that we just feel like we have too many choices and it's hard to make one.
There was I love these studies where the study is a trick. They had people fill out a survey and in exchange you get a free t-shirt. The study was actually the t-shirt. So these people filled out a form, and then with one group they said you get a free green T-shirt. Then with the other group they said you get your choice between red, green, or blue. The people after that they were then asked how they felt about the gift. The people who were given a choice were rated it more negatively than those who weren't. The people who got a free shirt were like, cool, free shirt. The people who got the choice said, I made the wrong choice. I should have taken the blue one.
So arranged marriage.
Well,
Arranged
yeah,
marriage,
I have clients that have arranged marriages, believe it or not.
How does that work?
I was surprised to see that it is not like something that I thought would never happen, but my practice is in New York and I'm not really seeing clients as much actively now as I used to in the past. But I mean, there's actually a lot of people from cultures where their parents are arranging marriages and it's not as bad as it sounds. Like their parents are not like forcing them to get married to anybody. It's more like their parents are just like lining up first dates for them essentially. And some of the clients that I would have that didn't have that happening for them, they would be like, I kind of wish my parents would do that for me, because it tends to happen, obviously not with all, but like in the Jewish communities and with the people who have come from India, they tend to have that happen more often, at least in just my colloquial observations.
Those sound like blind dates. They're setting up blind dates.
Yeah, basically blind dates.
But that's different than saying you're marrying this person now.
You're right. It's arranged marriage opportunities. Like where they're setting up blind dates with somebody who's marriage minded. But you're right. It's not like they're just saying, hey, go meet your husband.
And also, in most arranged marriages, the person has the option to not marry. It's not like the parents go, you have to marry this person. Like, they pick someone and then they get to know them. And then if they don't want to, they do get the final say, yeah.
But I think a lot of
not all the time, obviously. In certain cultures, that's not the case.
I think a lot of cultures, they can just say no, but then the parents are like, don't do this. Like, we've worked hard at this.
Cultural
so
pressure.
there's pressure for sure.
Right.
That makes
sense.
sense.
But it used to be with arranged marriages where, like, the dad would go to the dad of the daughter and be like, how much money do I get? We're doing this.
Yeah, dowries.
Dowries and land grants and things like that. That's why a lot of the royal families were doing it all.
100%. Well, one of the things that I notice in that conversation about arranged marriage is that both parties are going into it with the understanding that they are dating for marriage. It's something we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And not only dating for marriage, right, but giving up this idea that there is a quote-unquote soulmate. I think it's a really toxic and destructive idea that there's going to be someone who will come along and you'll just have an effortlessly good relationship. That's not going to be true about friendships or relationships, like any kind of relationship that you have. And so it makes sense that in our culture, we would think that, because as you mentioned, we're all about instant gratification. So yes, of course I'm going to meet someone who just like bends to my will and everything, which people don't admit, but that's kind of what they say when they want a soulmate. I want someone who isn't going to require that I change anything about myself or give anything to, and who is just like effortlessly pleasurable to be with.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.